David Howlett is with us. He's director of MMR in Wallingford. They're a market research company which helps brands develop their image and their products. Good morning to you, David.
Morning, Phil.
Paralympics then. Big business for sponsors.
Absolutely. I think it's become mainstream. Great news for Paralympics that it's attracting the financial investment to come inwards to make the whole thing happen. Great news for brand owners. They can become associated with something fantastic and new and something that's really exciting that everybody's really buying into.
So let's explore that then. So the sponsors of TV coverage, what do they hope to get out of it? Do they hope to get increased sales?
They do eventually. I mean, it's a long-term game, sponsorship. You don't go into it trying to get a return in the first 6 months or even 12 months perhaps, but it's all about associating yourselves with things which the public like and love. And the Paralympics is a great example. So big events that we like, big positive events, if we see their name next to it, we associate them with goodness. Absolutely. That's exactly how it works. And the reason why this is so interesting is that this has perhaps caught the nation's attention more than people thought it might. So those sponsors who got in there will have got a relatively good deal. They'll be happy about that. They'll be happy with all the positive coverage that's being attracted by the games, and they will want to repeat this in the future, and they'll want to keep their place in there for future games.
Now that of itself is quite interesting because there would have been a time when I would imagine lots of sponsors would have stayed away from something like the Paralympic Games, with lots of people with disabilities being shown, because it wouldn't have been seen in such a positive light.
Yeah, that's perhaps true, but I think these things are a reflection of society as a whole, and society is far more willing to engage and have all these things as mainstream events. People are enjoying it as a sporting occasion, and I think it's a real win-win situation. And we've got to remember, of course, that it's money that actually makes the world go round. Without money, we wouldn't be able to watch it in the way that we are doing. We wouldn't have the 500 hours worth of coverage that Channel 4 are giving us. So the whole thing is sort of based on this principle of financially incentivised business, getting the most out of it, and then we can watch what we like to watch, which is the games.
So we've been able to conduct an interesting experiment, because we've had the Olympics on the BBC, no ads. The Paralympics on Channel 4, lots of ads. Channel 4 say that, I think they've said they actually cut down the number of ad slots, but people still complaining.
Yeah, well, that contrast was amazing. I think the whole, the Olympics embodies generosity as spirit, and it's such a feel-good event. The fact that the BBC was in there first with their event, it looked great. The coverage was amazing. The feedback was amazing. To then have so soon afterwards the Paralympics with commercial sponsorship sort of so evident immediately, and the whole funding so evident, sort of has pricked a little bit of a bubble perhaps. But I think maybe that's dying down a bit. I think people do realise now that money is what makes the world go round. The BBC have to make choices with the licence fee revenue that they get in. They decided they couldn't pitch for this particular event, so it needed another commercial TV organisation to come in there and fill that void and give us with that coverage. So I think whilst that initial contrast was huge, I think things are probably going to settle down. What it doesn't mean, though, however, is that the TV companies can sort of ignore the sensitivities. They need to be very careful with their scheduling. They need to put the ads at the right time. And there was some criticism of adverts coming in at the wrong time during the opening ceremony. I think they have to be very, very careful how they do this. But most people will realise, though, that it's the money that's allowing Channel 4 to present us with those 500 hours worth of coverage.
Do you have any insight into how the ad breaks actually work? Can they delay an ad until the right time?
Well, to a certain extent they can, but it's a bit of a conundrum, because, of course, the sponsors and the people who are paying the money for those adverts want it to come at the most exciting, the peak moments. So, the TV companies have got to be incredibly sensitive to that balance. On the one hand, they've got to put the adverts in at a certain frequency, so that they can actually include all their adverts in a day.
Because you don't want like 5 ads in the last 5 minutes.
Exactly. So they've got to maintain a certain frequency. I don't know exactly what the regulations are around that, but I'm sure they need to do that. But within that latitude that they have, they've got to make the right decisions.
So, because commercial ads around live events are always going to be problematic. I know ITV have got in trouble in the past for cutting to ad breaks when goals and missing the goals. The model that we have in this country, so we've got the BBC, and we've got ITV with paid. So BBC, no ads and a licence fee. ITV, paid ads, and we've got Sky, who have paid ads and subscription.
Yep.
Do you know how that compares with other places around the world?
I think probably it's more of a commercial slant in most other countries. I think, the BBC is well known for providing a great public service situation in the UK. I'm not sure quite how that model is reflected in other countries. What I think, though, is that it's likely to be a mixed funding model that continues into the future. That's for sure, because we've all got used to diversity in television. We've all got used to many, many channels. We've got used to choice. In order to have that choice, we need to have a wide variety of TV companies, probably with sort of a mixture of pay-per-watch, subscription, and BBC will be strengthened in negotiating for future increases in licence fee after this Paralympics, for sure.
You think so?
I think so, because I think the contrast was there for people to see. They're going to remember that they probably preferred the style of coverage that the BBC were able to provide to the Olympics versus Channel 4 to the Paralympics. So I think people will remember that centrally funded model is good. It's a little bit like, it's never a popular thing for politicians to try and raise revenue by raising income tax, but income tax is actually a very efficient way of collecting money and then spending it in a central way that pleases the majority of people. But none of us like to pay more income tax, yet we want to have the fruits of that money that's being collected and spent. So I think it's a very similar argument, and I think the British public will remember quite how excellent the BBC's coverage of the Olympics were. They'll also remember that Channel 4's coverage was great of the Paralympics, and they'll probably recognise that without that funding, it wouldn't have happened.
Do the ads spoil the action?
I think they can do for some people, and that's why I'm saying that it's so important that Channel 4 get it right in terms of the phasing of those adverts. People will give them some latitude. They will understand that it requires that to happen, but really it's something that they've got to take great care over.
Now, TV advertising, it's not the great monolith that it used to be now, is it? When big companies are spending money, TV is just part of the spectrum of places where they place their ads.
Exactly. I mean, it used to be the case that brand owners would put huge money into TV advertising alone. I'm old enough to remember the advert in 1985 when Levi's 501 got Marvin Gaye singing Heard It on the Grapevine. And, I worked with a brand manager who worked on that brand, and he said for 6 months to a year afterwards, it was a case of not having to do very much else. From a marketing perspective, the advert simply generated the awareness. People went down to the shops and they bought those jeans. That was a very sort of single track approach to doing their marketing. It worked very well for them. These days, brand owners have got so many different ways in which they can invest their money in promoting their brands. Some companies might choose to do a little bit of TV advertising. Other companies might choose to not use TV at all. You maybe use social media, maybe use adverts alongside your Facebook timeline. Whatever it might be, there's a load of choices these days for brand owners to decide how to get people to buy their products.
Because it used to be said that 50% of advertising is a complete waste of money, but it's just that nobody knows
exactly which 50% it is. That's very true. That's very true. And that's why companies have to have a sort of a portfolio approach to these things. And very rarely these days will a company have one approach to marketing alone.
Well, that's a very interesting analysis of the situation. Thank you very much for that, David. David Howlett is director of MMR in Wallingford. They're a market research company that helps brands develop their image and product.